The story of Jacob. The story of Jacob, one of the patriarchs of the Israelite people, is a complex and eventful narrative filled with themes of family struggle, divine encounters, and personal transformation. Jacob, later renamed Israel, is the son of Isaac and Rebekah and the grandson of Abraham. His story spans from Genesis 25 to Genesis 50, where he experiences conflict, encounters God, wrestles with his identity, and ultimately becomes the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. Here is a detailed account of his life. Jacob and Esau were the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah. Before their birth, Rebekah felt intense movement within her womb and inquired of God, who revealed that 2 nations were in her womb, symbolizing the future rivalry between her sons. Esau was born first, but Jacob followed, grasping Esau's heel. Their names reflected these circumstances. Esau means hairy, and Jacob means he grasps the heel, or supplanter. The twins grew up very different from each other. Esau was a skillful hunter and favored by Isaac, while Jacob was a quiet man, preferring to stay at home, and was favored by Rebekah. One day, Esau returned from hunting and was famished. Jacob offered him a bowl of stew in exchange for Esau's birthright, the privileges due to the firstborn. Esau, indifferent at that moment, agreed, showing a disregard for his birthright. Isaac, growing old and nearly blind, prepared to give Esau his blessing as the firstborn. He asked Esau to hunt game and prepare a meal, intending to bless him afterward. Rebekah overheard this and instructed Jacob to deceive his father. She prepared a meal and dressed Jacob in Esau's clothes, covering his arms and neck with goatskins to mimic Esau's hairy skin. Isaac, though suspicious, was convinced and blessed Jacob instead of Esau. This blessing was a powerful one, giving Jacob authority and prosperity. When Esau discovered the deception, he was furious and vowed to kill Jacob. Rebekah, hearing of Esau's intent, advised Jacob to flee to her brother Laban in Haran. On his way to Haran, Jacob stopped for the night at a place that would later be known as Bethel. While sleeping, he had a vision of a stairway reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending on it. In the dream, God spoke to Jacob, reaffirming the covenant made with Abraham and Isaac, promising that Jacob's descendants would inherit the land and become a great nation. Jacob awoke with awe, marking the place as holy and naming it Bethel, meaning house of God. He vowed to worship God there and pledged a tithe if God would protect and bless him on his journey. Jacob arrived in Haran and met Rachel, Laban's younger daughter, at a well. He fell in love with her and agreed to work for Laban for 7 years to marry her. After 7 years, Laban deceived Jacob by substituting Leah, Rachel's older sister, as the bride. When Jacob realized the deception, he confronted Laban, who justified his actions by local custom. Laban then allowed Jacob to marry Rachel as well, on the condition that he work an additional 7 years. Thus, Jacob ended up with 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, though Rachel was his true love. Leah bore Jacob 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Rachel, initially barren, gave her maid Bilhah to Jacob, who bore Dan and Naphtali. Leah also offered her maid Zilpah, who bore Gad and Asher. Eventually, Leah bore more sons, Issachar and Zebulun, and a daughter named Dinah. Finally, Rachel conceived and bore Joseph. During this period, Jacob grew prosperous. Through selective breeding, he acquired large flocks of sheep and goats, as well as servants and wealth, though tension grew between him and Laban. God instructed Jacob to return to his homeland. Fearing Laban, Jacob left secretly with his family and possessions. Laban pursued him, but they eventually made peace and set up a boundary. As Jacob neared Canaan, he feared a confrontation with Esau. He sent messengers ahead with gifts to appease his brother, but he remained anxious. That night, Jacob encountered a mysterious man with whom he wrestled until dawn. When Jacob demanded a blessing, the man revealed himself as a divine being, possibly an angel or God himself. Jacob was renamed Israel, meaning he struggles with God, because he had wrestled with God and prevailed. This encounter marked a turning point in Jacob's life, signifying his transformation from a deceiver to a man with a new identity and purpose. The next day, Jacob met Esau, who ran to embrace him in an unexpected act of forgiveness. Esau accepted Jacob's gifts, and they parted peacefully, each going his own way. Jacob settled in Shechem, buying land and setting up his family there. He also built an altar to God, further affirming his commitment to the God of his fathers. While in Shechem, Jacob's daughter Dinah was violated by Shechem, the son of a local ruler. Her brothers, Simeon and Levi, avenged her by killing the men of Shechem after deceiving them into circumcision. Jacob, troubled by the consequences, eventually moved his family to Bethel, where God again reaffirmed his covenant, reminding Jacob of his new name, Israel. Jacob set up an altar there as a sign of his dedication. On the journey, Rachel went into labor and gave birth to Benjamin, but she died during childbirth. She was buried near Bethlehem. Jacob's older sons grew jealous of Joseph, his favorite son, due to Jacob's favoritism and Joseph's prophetic dreams. They sold him into slavery in Egypt, deceiving Jacob into thinking Joseph was killed by a wild animal. Heartbroken, Jacob mourned deeply for Joseph, believing him to be dead. The famine eventually struck the land, forcing Jacob to send his sons to Egypt to buy grain. Unknown to Jacob, Joseph had risen to power in Egypt. After a series of events, Joseph revealed himself to his brothers and invited the whole family to live in Egypt during the famine. Jacob traveled to Egypt to reunite with Joseph, a moment of great joy for him in his old age. Pharaoh welcomed Jacob and his family, allowing them to settle in the land of Goshen. Near the end of his life, Jacob blessed each of his sons, giving prophetic words that would define their descendants and their roles within the future nation of Israel. He blessed Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, granting them inheritance rights as his own sons, effectively making Joseph the father of two tribes within Israel. Jacob died in Egypt at the age of 147. His sons honored his request to be buried in the cave of Machpelah in Canaan, the family burial site. Jacob's story is a journey of transformation from a man known for cunning and deception to one deeply touched by divine encounters, repentance, and growth. His descendants became the 12 tribes of Israel, fulfilling God's covenant promise. His life is marked by encounters with God, struggles with family, personal loss, and eventual reconciliation, culminating in his role as the father of a nation chosen by God. Jacob's legacy, as Israel, reflects the endurance of the Israelite people and the fulfillment of God's promises.